What's up, CFO gang? It's your boy Jay Tuck. Real Cowboys fans, stand up and listen, y'all. Our team is out there in Oxnard, California. They are there. They are there right now, gearing up for training camp for the 2024 season starting tomorrow. And y'all know football is here. Football is finally here. And like I've been telling you guys all off season, it's all gas, no brakes. So I had to bring in a very special guest. You've probably seen her on DallasCowboys.com. You've probably seen her go on Girls Talking Boys with Aisha Morrison, who was just on the last show as well, killing as well. And I just found out today, if you ask her about the weather, she might know a little something about the weather as well, but she is definitely killing it covering on Dallas Cowboys. She's extremely busy, y'all, but she had the time to stop by and get us all prepared for camp. So CFO fam, let's give a warm welcome to my girl, Jess. What's going on, Jess?
Hi, Chuck. Oh my goodness. I love coming on here with you because it's just always so much fun. Like, you should have heard us before we started this whole thing. Tuck and I were just going. Like, we started talking about tea and how all he drinks is Cowboy Ritas and water. Like, a little bit of everything. The weather. You didn't know I did weather? That is nuts. I thought, well, I guess I shouldn't assume everybody knows that. But, like, yeah, in fact, if you didn't know, I started my career doing weather forecasting.
Yeah.
And for a minute thought I was going to be a meteorologist, and clearly like that didn't happen, which,
right.
You know, I forecast other things now, such as how the Cowboy season will look. So,
exactly.
And you know what? It comes in handy when like they're going to play in an outdoor stadium.
Right.
Comes in handy.
There you go. Grab your umbrellas. Well, I will say this. You are in the right lane because you are killing it, whether it's with the Dallas Cowboys or just covering football in general. I know you did some draft stuff as well. So you are in the right lane. And speaking of this Dallas Cowboys forecast, it's a little cloudy, but we'll definitely talk about that here in a second. Now, I will say this, fam, because we were talking about this backstage. I don't drink tea. So she has some tea and she's like, oh, you need to go to this place next time in Dallas. I don't drink tea. The only time I drink tea is on accident when I grab my wife's cup and I spit it out of me. I don't drink tea. I don't drink coffee. I don't drink energy drinks. I drink soda if you mix it, you know, with the Sprite. You know, every now and then I drink water, and Cowboy Ritas. That's it. It's like the two extremes, right? Going from pure water to Cowboy Ritas, but it just is what it is. But I just never been a tea drinker, but I've heard a lot of good things. Now I do take green tea extract. I take the pill for them.
Okay, that's fair.
But drink it, just can't do it. Just can't do it. So, but maybe if I had to guess, Jess, you would probably have better odds getting me to listen to Taylor Swift than actually drinking tea. I think your chances are much higher turning me into a Swiftie than drinking tea. But speaking of tea, we're talking about this backstage, right? Michael Gallup just announced his retirement. And it's really crazy when you hear that because it's just like you still think a lot of these guys are young, right? They still are very young. But Michael Gallup announced his retirement. And Michael Gallup is a phenomenal athlete, man. He played incredible, had a great career at Dallas. But you know more than anybody. You know what Michael Gallup and MG13 was like behind the scenes. So for the people who do not know, what was it like being around Michael Gallup and what was the type of person and what he brought to the locker room?
You know what? The thing about MG is he's known for his smile. Like if you notice all the tweets, all of the Instagram stories wishing him a happy retirement, everything mentions his smile. He is the you want to talk about people's auras. And for me personally, I can go up to a person and kind of just get a good feel off of their aura. He is one of the happiest people I've ever met. Like, sunshine in a person is Michael Gallup, and he is the most genuine person that was in that locker room that I've had the privilege of talking to. He was very easy to cover because a lot of guys, you know, and to nobody's fault at all, it's difficult being a player for the Dallas Cowboys with the landscape of the media, right? But MG was always just so honest about where he was. And, you know, he didn't shy away from being honest about coming back from the knee injury and how mentally that was the hardest part for him to recover from, right? So obviously last season, we didn't see as much of MG as we had hoped, and he kind of just wasn't the same after that injury. But what I will say about MG is anytime we talked, I learned something new. And we had the most insightful conversations about football and even life sometimes, because you have to remember, like, I met him when I first started covering the Cowboys. I was very new, very green. And honestly really nervous to be in there because it was really intimidating for me. And so I was like brutally honest with MG, like, I'm sorry, I'm like still learning how to do this really. And
Mm-hmm.
he was patient with me. He was always very kind. And then that turned into like very honest conversations where, for a long time, especially under the Kellen Moore offense, I was like, okay, MG, like, what's going on here? Like,
Mm-hmm.
like crazy? Am I seeing things the right way? And he was very honest with me, which I always appreciated. He was honest with really any reporter. But the insightful conversations, like those, helped me be better at talking football, to be
That's great.
honest. So I'm forever grateful for him. I wish him the best. Him and his little boy Miles. I'm excited that Miles gets more time with his dad and his family. So MG's a big family guy, so I'm sure he's also the cool uncle, so he gets to spend time with the whole family now. And I really wish him the best going forward, but it is also sad. Like, you don't ever want to see a player leave their career that early, and especially
Mm-hmm.
after it feels like he didn't get the redemption that we all had hoped for post-injury.
Yeah, and that's what a lot of people don't understand, Jess. I mean, you think about that draft class, right? Him and Leighton both announcing their retirements. And so I know a lot of people, we look at these players as gladiators and they're going to play forever and do the Tom Brady. But for a lot of these players, a simple injury can definitely shorten your career. And the one thing I will give Michael Gallup kudos on is it's hard as an athlete, even though I wasn't the athlete at the competitive level that they are, to kind of say, you know what, my knee just isn't what it is right now. Because of course he could have played for the Raiders, maybe kind of gave them a little effort out there, but he had to have that important conversation with himself and say, listen, I just can't. My body is not going to allow me to do so, and I got to protect my body. The same thing with Leighton Vander Esch, and that's something that a lot of fans overlook. But you get the inside view, Jess, that not a lot of people get. Who is the man outside of the helmet? Like you said, family man. And I've met Michael Gallup a few times, and he attended Butler County Community College, and so just a great, genuine guy. And you always seen people speak glowingly about Michael Gallup. You never see any negativity about Michael Gallup. You never saw any scrutiny, but also you never saw like a bad effort or a bad attitude from Michael Gallup. He was always just even kill, right? So, kudos to Michael Gallup. He'll definitely be missed, not just with the Dallas Cowboys in the NFL. And I think he has a bright future. He might be sitting next to you. Y'all might be in the locker room interviewing players because he has that personality as well.
He does, and I really am curious what he's going to end up doing. I wouldn't be surprised if he even went down kind of the philanthropy route either,
Mm-hmm.
because he is all about like giving back. It was really cool. So last year when I was covering the team with an outlet officially, my first viral story was an MG story.
That's
And I just
crazy.
was not surprised because I think as a reporter, you kind of just know what stories are going to get people like, oh, that's a good line. Like, and he was always such a good interview, right? So the first story I had that went viral was an MG story talking about how, like his goal for the season, this was before the season had even started, was, look, football, obviously I want to make big plays. I want to be part of the offense. I want to be there for Dak. But as long as I make one kid in that stadium smile, give them hope, give them faith that like they can do this one day, I did my job. And it was such a good story. Like those are the stories that write themselves. So
Right.
I remember I went to him and I was like, the story went viral. Like, that's my first viral story. And he was like, heck yeah. Like, he was excited for me. He's like, heck yeah. Like, do you get paid by views? Like, do we need to go click it more? Like, he was so cool about it. So
that's good.
yeah, I wish him the best. Like, I truly, man, I'm excited to see what he does.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I will say this about Michael Gallup, because I always said it jokingly, but I never knew. At least he played that Green Bay game like it was his last.
He did.
So I was like,
when you think about it, Tuck, do you feel like now knowing what happened, like, do you think he knew that?
I don't know. That's what I was saying, because I was like, nobody showed up except Jake Ferguson and Michael Gallup. And it was like,
Yeah.
man, Michael Gallup played like it was his last game. Well, maybe it was. So, kudos to Michael Gallup, man. Great career. Because a lot of people don't understand the expectations. It was kind of like, okay, you were going to be the guy after Dez and different things. But he was definitely, I call him the toe drag king, because he always used to drag his toes on the sideline and make this
God, nothing
miraculous
like an
catches.
empty toe drag.
Exactly. Love the toe drags, man. Salute to the toe drag king and Michael Gallup. Now, speaking of the locker room, right? There's been a lot of question marks going on, whether it's contract controversy, Dak Prescott, Mike McCarthy, Ceedee Lamb. You had some off, stuff with Micah Parsons. A lot of pollution this offseason, lack of it and going all in, as you would say. But from your engagement, just being around the players, being in the locker room, what is the spirit of the locker room? How are those guys feeling as they gear up for camp and heading out there to Oxnard?
How do I say this? I feel like, obviously, post Green Bay loss, it was a very different feel. It was obviously a really pissed off feel, to say at the very least. Like, nobody was happy about that. And that's a big understatement.
Right.
Like, huge understatement. I mean, I was there the day after when they were literally clearing out lockers, and the only two people that I talked to that were in there willing to talk to media was Jordan Lewis, of course, and Devontae Turpin. Like, not shocked by either. The other ones kind of were trickling in, and we didn't have a lot of media time in there. So I think there would have been more had the time frame been different. But now, like, after OTAs, I can tell you the feel was very, like, how do I say this? They know what's at stake here. Like, they know it's 1-year deals across the board. They're not shy about talking about it. They know it's like, look, we're getting tired of this too. It feels very fed up, but not in a pissed off way. Like, fed up with ending up in the same situation, fed up with, like, how things come down to these playoff games and not getting past the threshold, and understanding, like, the talent they had on the team last year, was already there. So to me, I think the feeling was they turned the page from the Green Bay game, but they also use it as motivation, which they do every year, of like, can't let that happen again. So it's kind of like, I think, a more serious feel, I would say, than it's been the past couple of years that I've been there too. It's like, no BS. We are here to, like, redeem ourselves from that, because they were truly humiliated. Like, I will say, after the game, going into the locker room post game, that, as a journalist, that's a situation you don't want to be in.
Right.
It's very awkward. It calluses you to be like, well, I have to do my job. Like, I have to ask these questions, and most of the guys were willing to talk, but also it was so sad, like, seeing some of the guys that you knew wouldn't be there again or might not have been there again, seeing them cry. Like, it was horrible. But I will say, like, they used that moment, a lot of the guys I talked to be like, I'm not feeling that way again.
Right.
So I would say it's a mixture of, like, pissed off, but projecting it in, like, a productive way.
Yeah, and here's what I've been saying, Jess. I know that there's been a lot of scrutiny this offseason, and a lot of Cowboys fans really don't have a lot of, faith in this year's team. But what I am leaning on is exactly what you said. When you go through something, just as an athlete or anything like that, that hits you that hard, you don't forget that, and it's going to carry with you for a while, and you definitely want to redeem yourself. Because I feel like the San Francisco losses, it kind of felt like, we were there, if the ball bounces this way, maybe we could have. But I think for the Cowboys standpoint, when it comes to that Green Bay loss, none of us till this day know what the heck happened. Like, it was just like, we just went out there and got whooped across the board. So I feel like Mike McCarthy is going to be able to use that to his advantage and say, listen, this is why we need 100% focus all the time. You can't get too high in the season. You can't get too low, because if we get on a 6-game win streak and we beat Philadelphia and start feeling yourselves, what happened last year can definitely happen. So you kind of keep that moment with you and build off of it, which I think the Cowboys are going to do, which gets me excited, because I felt like, knowing that everybody's on 1-year deals, surrounding and backing up your coach and Mike McCarthy, who a lot of players, I'm sure you will attest to this, they really like. It's like, okay, it's us versus the world. And I feel like this team can really bond together and make things happen, but you got to focus day in, day out, and it starts tomorrow at training camp. Now, speaking of coaching staff, right? Defensive side of the ball, out with Dan Quinn and with Coach Zimmer, completely new overhaul the defensive coordinator and defensive staff, right? So from your lens, like when you look at the staff, look at the defensive side of the ball, how are the players interacting with the coaches, and how does that feel different from what you kind of saw from last year and the Dan Quinn tenure?
So what I want to preface this with is, this is no shade to Dan. Like, Dan was one of the coolest coaches I will ever get to cover in my career covering an NFL team. Like, he's honest, he's upfront, open. Even the way he ran his press conferences was really cool. He had like an opening statement, and then he'd open for questions, and he was very, very vocal, didn't shy away from the hard questions. Like, my respect for Dan Quinn, out of this world, truly. But the vibe I get is it was becoming more of a friendship than it was a coaching player relationship. Dan kind of became, I feel like, a little more lenient than he started, especially with some guys more than others, to be like, you don't want to do that? Okay, like,
right.
All right, you know, instead of being like, I'm not asking, like, as your coach, I'm telling you, this is what we're doing. I feel like maybe there was just a little too much comfortability from the players' ends, like knowing Dan would be a little more lenient with them. And I think that's a good thing. Like, I don't necessarily hate that approach, but I do think when things started to unravel, or you're having the same issues, run defense, like, can we scream that? Stops, like undisciplined mistakes, like it's just, you have to put your foot down at some point, and I feel like the foot wasn't put down quite enough. Like, if you watch Inside Out, when he's like, the foot's down, like I felt like the foot was never put down. Like, I don't know. I feel like the difference is that Zim's coming in here and he's like, look, I'm prioritizing getting to know these guys. I'm going to ask for like their feedback. But at the end of the day, like, it's what I want, you know, and he's going to be open and receptive to things, but it's also just very like, okay, like, let's see if that makes sense. But also, I'm the coach. It's, to me, the feeling was very like coach oriented as compared to like cool Uncle Dan Quinn. So I think Dan's strength is his relationship with the players and how he hones in on them. Like, they truly felt like they were his kids in a way. And I think that's perfect, you know, but I also think at some points, like, it kind of worked against him. And when you're having a game like you are in Green Bay, like, that's when it works against you, and you can't have that. So to me, I think the difference is Mike Zimmer is going to be more like, I don't want to cuss on here, but like more of a hard A, if you know what I mean. Like,
I said a lot worse. Like,
I'm not going to cuss, but a little bit more of a hard A with them than Dan was. Like, and I feel like Dan went in there when he first got hired like that, and then it tapered off a little bit, as compared to Zim, who's going to be very like, nope, I said no, go. Like, we'll see. And
I think you need, especially in Dallas, right? You're definitely going to need a mixture of both, because Dan Quinn, like you said, was kind of the uncle, cool uncle. You know what I'm saying? Dan, that's my guy. You know, I love Dan, right? He's out there boxing with the players who do all these different things. But also, when things really hit the fan, he wasn't down there with the players. He's up in the box, right? So it's like there's no stern hand that was really coming down from Dan Quinn. Now, I think that, of course, the players play well under Dan Quinn. Let's not act like our defense was horrible. So I know there's two sides of the conversation, right? Zim is on one-year deals. All this coaching staff is on one-year deals. Why would they listen to Coach Zimmer? And I've even said that myself, right? Because you have to be kind of aware of that. But when you tie it back to what Jess said earlier, y'all got dog walk. So you can't walk around with your head in the air like, I don't need to listen to nobody. I know what I'm doing, because your last performance was horrible, right? And you couldn't stop the run. You got ran all over. So maybe Coach Zimmer can help. So I feel like what I've heard thus far from like the Malik Hooker interviews, we also heard Jordan Lewis briefly yesterday, that they're already kind of quote unquote bought in on Zim and Zim's way. Now it's going to be interesting to see, of course, how that translates throughout the season, right? Because if things hit the fan and, you know, Micah's not getting sacks and no one's getting pressure and they're really getting cooked, they might just say, you know what, this is horrible. We try to go back and do what we're known for. But I feel like as of right now, Zim definitely has their ear and everybody is going to be locked in. And I feel like it's going to be more important for the veteran guys to be like, nah, no, listen to Coach Zim. You know what I'm saying? If he says Sam Williams, you got to get out for jumping all sides, then you got to get out for jumping all sides. And players are going to also have to police each other, which I'm definitely interested to see as we get to camp. So it should be fun. It's always fun. You know what I'm saying? I did a video yesterday, the defensive side of the ball. That is where I'm going to be locked and loaded, all eyes in camp, because that's the only thing I really care about. Because offense is fine. I mean, Mike McCarthy, they're fine. But defense, how are they moving as a unit? Now, speaking of the offensive side of the ball, I feel like my biggest question mark would be the most important piece, which is the offensive line. So, Terrence Steele, he came off the injury, didn't look like himself, started to play a little bit better at the end of the year, but we all kind of remember that first Philadelphia game where we're kind of just covering eyes, like, what is going on? Then you have Brock Hoffman playing center, but then you're going to have Cooper Beebe be the addition. You drafted Tyler Guyton in the first round to play left tackle, but there's conversations about he might redshirt with Chima Udoga. So for your standpoint, how does things look with the offensive line, and what are some of your concerns, but also most importantly, what are your positives?
So getting a feel at OTAs, talking to the guys, and keep in mind, like, there's been, a month since then, and a lot can change in a month, was the vibe I got is if you're talking about a center, and probably at that point, who would have gotten the starting job? This is going to surprise you, and this is coming straight from a player's mouth. I'm not going to say who.
Right.
And it was no shade to his teammates. It was just being honest of where everybody was. It was TJ Bass, Brock Hoffman, and then Cooper Beebe in the list of kind of pecking order to who was getting it.
Y'all heard it here first. See, I haven't even thought about that, but I like that.
Yes,
I like
because
that.
then you also could have the versatility with Brock Hoffman or Cooper Beebe if you wanted. Like, you can still shift these guys wherever. And so when I was talking to the guys, like kind of scoping out how the rooks were doing and how they were picking up things, what I learned kind of more than anything is their biggest challenge isn't necessarily like the playbook. And yes, it is learning the playbook, but it's how similar some of the plays are in the playbook, where it's literally a matter of like a split-second movement that differentiate it for the offensive line. So that was, in talking to some of the veteran guys, for them, they were like, that was challenging for me as a rookie, but also like looking at them and where they are now, like Guyton and Beebe, like it's going to take them some time. So I think the fan base, like there's higher hopes for like Cooper Beebe and Tyler Guyton. Obviously there should be, like, they're tanks. And look, I'm 5'1", barely. I'm barely 5'1". So I'm standing next to them. I'm like, oh my God. Like, I'm so glad I don't play football and I don't have to face you guys every day. Like, that's insane. But I feel like let's gauge where they are during training camp, because they are still rookies. Like Cooper Beebe, specifically, I think was struggling a little bit with like those small little tweaks in play to play. But overall, like, I got good feedback too, that they were picking things up. So positive things take away, like rookies were working their tails off to pick things up, especially Tyler Guyton, who hasn't particularly worked in some of the positions they were trying to work in that before. And I wouldn't be surprised if there's a little bit more of a mix-up than we're thinking. And the whole thing with Chuma Udoga. Chuma is one of, like, my favorite people to talk to in the locker room. He had told me that during the offseason, he did have multiple offers from multiple teams, but he chose to stay with the Cowboys, which I thought was really interesting. And I was like, well, why? Because he told me where the other kind of offers were. And to me, I was like, that could have been, like, really good for you. Like that, and to me, it kind of sounded like he knew he was more needed here to kind of help teach the rooks, but also be advantage for him in the sense that while they're learning, I can still get more playing time. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so don't count Chuma out because he's also a dog. Like, Chuma is a dog. The thing about him is he's older, obviously, so he's a little more banged up, but like, he's still going to play and work his tail off if he's banged up. Like, do not count Chuma Edoga out of this either, because guess what the Cowboys would have done last year if Chuma wasn't there? Like, it'd be pretty SOL.
Right.
So Chuma, I think is a guy that a lot of people count out just because like he's not the shiny new toy, but also like he is very reliable and the coaches do talk really highly of Chuma, and he also like his teammates do too. Like he seems pretty chill and quiet, but he's also a guy that does have like a bucket of knowledge and that veteran leadership that helps guys. So I'm keeping an eye on him to see how much they actually like pop him in. As far as Tyler Smith, God, I'm so excited for him. Like, oh my gosh. I met him his rookie year and he was so green and so nervous to talk to us. And now he like doesn't stop talking. I'm like, can you explain this to me? He's like, oh yeah, sure. Like there's this and this and this. And I'm like, can you explain it in the way I know? Like, I don't know what that means. He's like, oh yeah. So they go back, you know, like, so willing to help, but also just so detailed in when he's talking to you because he's confident in it and he knows what he's doing now. Like that is your O-line leader. Like obviously Zach, but like Tyler Smith, he is as Cowboys Nation, we have to kind of accept that this could be one of the last seasons we see Zach Martin, right? Like we know that, we know it's coming, we know it's in the near future. He should give you hope that like you have that leadership on the offensive line. So his confidence and the way he presents himself,
it's
I'm
different.
Like,
it's not. Well, it's funny because like, you know, when he was a rookie, he was very quiet. I just call him, you know, Big Coop because he looks like Amari Cooper in the face. But it's like, you know, you watch him yesterday. They look alike. I need to do a side by side of him and Amari Cooper because they look very like, right? But it's like yesterday you saw him getting off the bus, and then it's like Tyler Smith with his chains on and like, okay, he has arrived. Like Tyler Smith has arrived, and he's no longer just a cute little, you know, possible Tyron Smith replacement. He is here. He is here. Like you said, he is quote unquote our veteran leader. So our younger guys are now viewed as veterans, even though, you know, Terrence is still kind of young a little bit as well, but he's a veteran. And Cooper Beebe even spoke about, you know, Brock Hoffman kind of taking him under the wing and get him. So it's like that layer of kind of like the 3 to 4 year guys, like they're going to be an important piece to our offense. Now, I was going to ask Brock Hoffman this question. He didn't get to come on the show because he, you know, can't, right? But Coach Solari, what is Coach Solari? Because we never get to see Coach Mike Solari, the offensive line coach. What is he like?
He's very like
man of mystery.
He's very even keeled. Like very even keeled. He's not like Greg Zanina up on the other side on the D line. Like he's not gonna like. He's very cut and dry. Like that is the best way I can explain him. He's cut and dry, to the point. You ask him a question, he's gonna just say the answer. He's not gonna like joke around with you, and like just cut and dry, straight to the point. And that's how he treats media. But what I've heard from the players is he's just very detailed in the information he gives them too. Like, so when he was missing a little bit last season, like the thing about Solari is he's very missed by the O-line when he's not around. Like they respect the hell out of him and they talk about him a lot. They're like, oh yeah, Solari told me this and this, and just he's very detail oriented. So he's very chill with the media. Like and some coaches are like, I'm not gonna joke around with you guys and whatever. Like that's fine.
Right.
But the players and the players' sake, like he's very, very good, especially for younger guys, which I feel like this coaching staff as a whole does very well, is they go back to the basics with them first to be like, let's clean this up and then we'll go from there. Like, let's not cross a bridge before we're even like clean with our basics. And it sounds dumb, right? Like, oh, you have to work on things that you learned probably in high school football, but you know, it helps them. It helps refine a lot of their games. And Zach Martin, perfect example. Like he's always a student of the game, and I think Solari's a really good guy for him.
Yeah, and it's very important. The technique, the small things are what matter, right? Getting your hands inside, practicing on your punch. Like, of course, I know you and Savannah were talking about in the space the other day, like all these crazy drills they're doing defensively, but sometimes it's the simple things. It's the simple things that will get you beat throughout the course of the season. So that's good to hear that they're focused on basics. But yeah, I don't think I've never seen like a Mike Solari interview or anything. It's just like whoa, you know, so it's just like he's just always kind of a man of mystery man. We're gonna bring him in.
Like, he's just cut and dry. Like, I don't know, I think
not like Bones, like, you know.
Bones is so fun. Oh my goodness, he's one of my favorite coaches to talk to. There was a game where I was covering it, and then I was on the field trying to record like a post-game recap, and he was out there throwing the football after the game with his daughter, like on the field. So I was walking out, passed by him, and I was like, hey, by the way, I just wanted to like tell you, because of you, I really have taken initiative to learn more about special teams and just how important of an aspect it is to the game. And it's really helped me become a better reporter just in general, to really hear you speak. And I talked to him for a long time. So anytime after that, like, he always asked me, like, do you need anything? How are you? Like, can I help you with anything? Super willing to help. Like, Bones Fossil is a gem of a human.
He's a very cool guy. I remember when we played Tampa in the playoffs. So, you know, I went and did my morning run. So I'm going my morning run. Then Coach Fossil was out there, right? So he's running. I was like, oh, you know, I said, go Cowboys, Coach. And he pulled up and ran next to me, and he was talking like, yeah, I was like, we're ready tonight, you know, we're gonna get him. And then he just takes off. I'm like, I'm not running your pace, bro. I got my own race, you know. So I got my own race to run, Coach. But he just took off. But he was, you know, he was a cool guy. You know, got to talk to him for a little bit, told him where I'm from, and he's excited, man. He's excited. But special teams is going to be interesting, Jess, because, you know, especially when it comes to the undrafted guys, I always talk about special teams as the way to get your foot in the door. But not a lot of people are talking about kickoff is different this year. So, you know, those guys that can kind of just run downhill and, you know, on kickoff team, are you going to be really needed? Because you're not going to get that head start. So it's going to be interesting to see these guys try to make the kickoff team and make special teams doing it in a way they've never even practiced before. So it's like, how do you really stand out? So that's going to definitely be interesting. But before I let you go, like I said, you're super busy, sis, so I don't want to keep you all night. But I want to talk about the second year guys versus the rookies, and how do you think that's going to shake out? So like a situation where you have Eric Scott Jr., who we traded up to go get, right? But then you have Kalen Carson, who I think is going to be phenomenal corner. Like, how do you think these battles are going to change out? Because Eric Scott Jr., Dan Quinn coaching staff that brought you in. Kalen Carson, Zen's coach. You know, so it's going to be interesting to see. So what are some of those, you know, second year versus rook battles that you're keeping your eye on as we gear up for camp tomorrow?
Oh man, let's see. I'm pulling up a depth chart right now because I don't want to miss anybody. So second year players, let me see. I'm going through some of the guys I'm keeping a close eye on. Let's start on the offense. Jalen Brooks, JB. Do not count him out of the wide receiver race. I know the wide receiver 3 race is pretty stacked at this point. What I want to keep an eye on for JB is his confidence level during training camp and making sure it stays high. I feel like overall he hasn't struggled with it, but because the room is so stacked and he kind of just understands the opportunity, I'm hoping he can keep that same mentality, because for him, the skill set's there. Like, you want another toe touch king, like toe tapping king. That's your guy. Like, JB could be that guy for you, but I worry a little bit about if he can keep the confidence level with how stacked that competition is. So I'm gonna keep an eye on that, and I think he can. And especially because he really shined in training camp last year, like he knows kind of how to do it at this point. I just worry a little bit about that, but I hope he doesn't struggle with it. Let's see, more second year guys. Let's keep going down. Luke Schoonmaker. Okay, Schoon, welcome to your first training camp. I am very excited for him. I talked to him in the locker room the last day of OTAs, and the first thing he tells me as soon as I walk up, he's like, guess what? And I said, what? And he's like, I'm going to tight end university. And it was really cool. And I was like, you know me. I was like, are you gonna meet Taylor Swift? Like,
not where you're gonna be focused on what you're gonna do there. Are the Swifties gonna be there? Like, yeah.
and then I was like, that's a trick question because she's on her Eras tour during Tight End Youth. So, you know, and
you gotta make sure you know those things before you head out there, right?
And he was laughing about it, but he was like, no, like, because the tight ends know, like, how much I love the tight end position, and really, like, I tell them always, like, if it wasn't for Jason Witten, I would not be here. Like,
right.
If it wasn't for that whole fandom and the respect that I have for him, like, I wouldn't be here. So tight ends always are, like, one of my favorite position groups, and they know that. But he was just so excited to tell me, and I was like, that's so cool. And he was telling me kind of how it works and all that. And at that point, it had just come out about his injury. So I asked him, like, are you going to be able to participate? He's like, if all goes well, that's the goal. I haven't talked to him since to know if he got to participate or how much participation he got. But it was good to see he wasn't on the pup list going into training camp. And I kind of, based on our conversations, I figured he wouldn't unless there was a setback. So I was glad to see that. But as far as Schoon, what's going to be interesting is that tight end room dynamic is, you know, you're so used to Jake and Peyton kind of being like the two guys, right? Like Tweedledee, Tweedledum kind of situation. I'm wondering if that dynamic kind of shifts with Jake and Schoon now. Right. And Peyton just has had unfortunate circumstances with injuries and timing. I'm really going to need Peyton Hendershot to have a fantastic camp, or his roster spot is definitely in jeopardy. Like, I'm just saying, we all know that. We all know that.
I think he knows that, right? Because, you know, even if you take out Schoonmaker, you add John Stevens coming back, who had a phenomenal camp last year, and then Brevin Spahn Ford, who, you know, they just paid him like I did not know for some reason, because I guess to look at this, I looked at like how much are these undrafted guys getting as far as guaranteed money, and I said, oh, he got the bag. Like, yeah, we're talking like 300, 400,000. So I was like, oh yeah, so he's definitely in play for a roster spot. So I feel like for Hendershot, no ankle injuries, no nothing. Like, you're gonna have to go out there and really, really scrap. And I know for him it's gonna be kind of unfortunate because you had it, and that's the worst. When you have a taste of it, like you played in the playoffs, you went and beat Tom Brady, you had decent games, and you and Ferg was the next big thing, and then it's just like, nope, here comes Schoonmaker, here comes Ford, here comes John Stevens is back, and it's just like, you got to get in when you're fit in, and that's what a lot of people don't understand when it comes to just competition, which is good to have. It's good to have competition that nobody is safe except Ferg, you know, but it's going to bring out the best. Yeah. Ferg is good. You know, Ferg is good.
You know who tight end one is.
Yeah, but it's going to bring the best out of you.
I think with Schoon is what I really like is he's embraced shadowing Ferg, and he has embraced like understanding, you know, the disappointment that was last season for him and just that whole room in general, like the underutilization and kind of why it was like that. And he has prioritized, you know, really getting that rapport with Dak. And I think that was probably one of Jake Ferguson's biggest pieces of advice is like, you need to connect with Dak. And so, you know, Dak's not a stranger to connecting with the guys around him. He opens his home to them. He welcomes them into like every aspect of his life. So Schoon's really prioritized that. And, you know, he's a big faith. He's a big guy of his faith. And talking to him, he was like, you know, I understand what's ahead. And I'm just trying to take it, you know, step by step at this point. So I'm excited to see Schoon because I think you're seeing a guy that gets the excitement of his first training camp, but also the advantage of all eyes are on you now. Go make big plays, and you essentially are tight end 2 on this team. So, and he's echoing Jake Ferguson. Like, if you can have a Jake Ferguson and like a Luke Schoonmaker who's playing at the top of his game, I'm not going to complain about it. And then a John Stevens Jr. returning. Oh.
Right. Yeah. Tight end room is good. Like I said, it's going to be a fun battle to kind of watch. Because like I said, going from last year, watching Schoon and John Stevens, I feel like if John Stevens doesn't go down, it's a completely different room. It looks completely different. So if he's able to bounce back, yeah, it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun to watch. Now, you mentioned Dak Prescott. We all know the contract situation. I'm not even going to talk about that because who knows, right? Who knows? But I want to talk about the other quarterback, Trey Lance, right? Because Trey Lance was brought in last year, 4th round pick. for whatever reason that may be. But for the people who really don't know Trey, what is Trey like in the locker room, and how is he just on his day-to-day, and what are your thoughts about Trey Lance?
Trey's so chill. Like, what's really cool to have seen since he came in last year was when he first got there, and I haven't like asked him about this, but at some point I feel like I will. He looked very deflated. Like, it almost looked like the 49ers took this guy, deflated him as much as they could, and were like, there you go, Dallas.
Right.
Like, kind of threw him out like he was nothing. And so his mentality was obviously like, I need to learn, I need to catch up. And when he first got there, like, I remember he was doing quarterback drills with Dak and Cooper, and he was very behind. Like, they were turning in sync, and then there was like Trey Lance like turning the other way and like panicking because he couldn't like catch up to them. And I was like, man, he's gonna get it. Like, and then you would see him like ask Dak and Cooper, like, what do I do here? How, like, you would see the conversations. And then you would talk to him in the locker room, and it was very like cut and dry. Like, yeah, I'm good. It's good. Transition's good. Very, very stale conversations.
Right.
Like, now talking to him, because he's a guy that I'd go bug like anytime I saw him. Very much so the way I bugged Jalen Tolbert. Like, how are you? How are you doing? Even if it's annoying, like, how are you doing? And he's one that I try to do that as much as I can if I have the opportunity to when I see him. And the confidence level, like, even compared to last year, is so much different because he understands it, and he knows that the guys around him like have accepted him as a brother. Like, the guys in the locker room really do respect him, and they've been patient while he's learned. And he learned the playbook, and he learned the, Mike McCarthy West Coast offense. Like, it took time because it really like was kind of what I gathered is like stripping him all the way down to like, let's go back to the fundamentals here, and then let's build up from there. And where he is now, he goes out for practice, and it's just like a different confidence. Like, he's running right next to Dak as Dak's running out on the field, and like he just like holds his shoulders up a little more high. So I think as far as Trey Lance goes, it's interesting because you do have the looming conversation of, is Dak Prescott going to be the Cowboys quarterback next year? You don't know, right? And there's no solidified deal yet. So it makes you wonder, although they didn't pick up Trey's, option or whatever, it makes you wonder how much they're looking at him right now to make the decision about Dak's contract. It makes you wonder, because at first, like, had you asked me even at the end of the season last year, like, do you think that could be something that they're considering? I'd be like, no, no way in hell. Like, that's not your next quarterback. Like, but now it just kind of feels like they're eyeballing, like they're looking at Dak, but they're also like, what's going on over here in a way. And not completely sold on it. I'm not saying they're like, yes, Trey Lance, but they know that there's an option there. So I want to see come training camp how many reps he gets with the first team, because obviously Dak's not sitting those reps out.
Right.
But if coach is telling you to do it, or Jerry's telling you to do it, I'm interested to see how many reps Trey's getting with those starters.
And as Dak Prescott would say, Cowboys Nation, here we go. Because I posted that on Twitter because a lot of people were asking, like, what is your confidence in the Dak deal getting done? And I like to be honest with you guys, I would say 10% right now, because I feel like what the Cowboys want to do, they want to see if they got something. And if Trey goes out there and let's say he has a Dak-ish type training camp and he goes out there in preseason, he wows the crowd and throws a 60-yard touchdown and takes off for a 50-yard run, and they feel like, okay, we might got something, they might pull back from negotiations with Dak Prescott. Now, if it goes out there, he falls flat, it's just like just not there yet, then okay, we'll say, okay, Dak, what it is, let's just get this deal done. Because I think, like you're saying, and a lot of like 49ers friends I talked to, it was just like the coach Shanahan was not in favor of Trey Lance. It was the ownership. So when things kind of hit the fan, if your coach is not a fan of you, you really had no one to have your support to kind of build you up. And then you get injured, and then it's just like, you know what? We're not going to let you compete versus Sam Darnold. We kind of just toss you away. So your confidence is killed. Like, can I do this? And did I make the wrong decision? You know, being a first-round pick and you get the bus tags and all these different things. Well, then you're in Dallas. Here's all this spotlight. Dak Prescott replacement. But the thing that I love the most is that Dak Prescott, the leader that he is, as much, you know, bullets and stuff he takes for the shield, he's like still going to be a leader to Trey. And Trey kind of like, no, Dak was helping me out. So it's not this Aaron Rodgers thing where it's kind of like, you know what, you figure it out. So I think that can definitely help his confidence because, you know, we'll see as we gear up tomorrow, but I expect a different Trey Lance and my guy too, Live Craig, who trains Trey and works with people who train him.
Oh, Craig.
Yeah, you know Craig. Yeah, so Craig was on the show a few weeks ago, and he was like, yeah, man, Trey's looking different. He's looking different. So,
and what I will say about Craig, okay, is last year around this time pre-training camp, I talked to him about Ceedee and how Ceedee's training was going, and Craig said, like, you're gonna be blown away. Like, he called it. He was like, expect like historic things from 88 this season. And when I'm writing this story, I'm like, those are pretty big claims, Craig. Like, okay,
okay, yeah.
Freaking Houdini, like, understood exactly what he was talking about. So what Craig said about Trey, listen to it. Like, absolutely listen to it. And another thing, oh, my phone fell. Another thing I want to mention is when Trey first got there, Cooper Rush was obviously getting like the reps when Dak wasn't out with the first, or like he was doing something else, or whatever the case is. Like, Cooper would get those first reps, or the backup reps. That shifted. Like, Cooper Rush doesn't get the reps over Trey Lance anymore. So when I noticed that at OTAs, I was like, oh, that's
moving on up. Moving on up.
Cooper Rush. So I think the conversation shifted from, Cooper Rush is the backup, no doubt, to I don't know.
Just on those heels. So that's my guy, BJ. Nick says, as the star turns, we'll have to wait and see what all happens and unfolds starting tomorrow, Cowboys Nation. Well, Jess, I appreciate you for coming on, killing it as usual. We're super proud of you. Keep doing your thing. But for everyone who's seen you for the first time, let everybody know where they can find you.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Jess Nevarez _ or Instagram. I don't really use Instagram that much, but mostly Twitter. We're back on Girls Talk, Boys Talk now that it is training camp season. We will have kind of a weird schedule in the meantime, so just stay on Twitter to see when we're on. Our first show is going to be this Friday at 5 o'clock Central Time. So we're excited to see you. There's some good stuff coming up on Girls Talk, Boys Talk this season. And other than that, I'm still technically a free agent. So if y'all know of anybody who wants a sports reporter, you let me know. Slide in those DMs and let me know.
Yes, she's for hire, y'all, and you would get a hell of a hire. I'll tell you that out of my own mouth. Like, you get a hell of, if I had it, I would hire you, and you would be on CFO Sports immediately if I could hire you.
I would take it. I'd be like, let's talk ball. Let's talk,
rock. Let's rock
all day. You get sick of me. You'd be like, all right, mistake.
And that's why you guys have to like and share and subscribe to the channel so we can get more income, so I can hire Jess and hire a lot of incredible people out there, and then we can just build a whole army.
You also need money to pay for those Cowboy readers.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, because those Cowboy readers are not cheap at all. Not cheap at all.
They are not. They are worth it, but they are not cheap.
Well, honestly, the Cowboy readers aren't that different from a price of water in Jerry's world.
You know what? You're not wrong. You are not wrong. And, I'm not even going to go there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
The food delivery, like, I'm not getting out of my seat to go get nachos.
People don't understand. They think I'm lying about that. I was like, no, I can sit there and have food delivered to me at the games. I'm not getting up. I'm not standing in line for nobody. It's bring me another Cowboy. Now, when you do that, they don't put the red grenadine in there. Like, I got to have the red, but
you have to get it before the game if you're going to get your mixed Cowboy Rita, or if you just want the red one, the strawberry one, you have to get it before the game. But
if not, they cut you off. But I'm excited to get back to AT&T Stadium to get a Cowboy Rita, and I know I definitely see you out there. So for everyone seeing me for the first time, where have you been? For JTuck151 on all social media platforms, the YouTube channel is CFO Sports. Comment, like, subscribe. We got a lot more incredible guests. We are here. It is football season. You guys are going to see me everywhere. We're doing a lot of different things, so you definitely do not want to miss out. Man, it's about to be fun. I'm excited for the season. I'm excited to have football back, period. College, NFL, any glimpse of it I can get. So these training camp videos, I'm already excited. I'm already excited to see those videos tomorrow, just seeing our boys back to football, because we got to redeem ourselves from Green Bay. I was sitting there, got punched in the mouth, and was just like, ugh, I need to redeem myself. So I appreciate everyone for tuning in. We got more shows coming up. Subscribe to the content. Do not miss out. Want everyone to stay safe, stay blessed, stay encouraged. Go Cowboys. Football season is here. Peace.